This video is sponsored by Squarespace. This is what your texting style says about you. Use the chapters below to navigate, but also just watch the whole video because most likely more than one of these will apply to you. And I am talking to you. If you're the type of person who will disappear for like 3-4 days every time someone messages you, then there are really only like two main options for why this happens. Number one, you really don't care about this person in particular that's texting you. So this is basically like the texting version of like responding to a work email. Like you can see the email like come into your inbox, but like I'm also not gonna respond to this right now. I could do it, but like I'm not going to because I can't be bothered to do it. Or number two, you actually do give a shit about the person that you're texting, but you care too much to give like an imperfect response. So here you kind of like read the message and you know that you're going to reply to this, but now your brain has prompted replying to the message as like a task, like a capital T task. And now replying requires like enough time and enough energy and enough like emotional bandwidth, the correct mood, knowing exactly what to say, how to say it, like what's the syntax going to be. But the issue here, right, is like oftentimes you've already like emotionally exhausted yourself to the point where there's actually like no reserve left for the actual task of replying to the message. Is that like over time the message becomes so old and so stale that like now the only socially acceptable like thing to do is to actually just never fucking respond to the message, you know, like change your legal name, move to Argentina, etc., etc. If you're the kind of person who replies to texts almost immediately, sometimes after you send your text, which you responded to immediately, you like retroactively kind of realize that it was kind of weird how quickly you responded. So after that, you might follow up with some like, oh, no rush if you're making plans, or like, ha 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 for other texts. So it makes you look like casual and chill and not like you were like staring at your phone, like immediately replying. But then you overthink whether that was fucking weird, because was it just normal that I texted and then I happened to be on my phone, so I responded almost immediately, and then the other person actually doesn't care that I responded immediately, but then I retroactively took back my casualness by adding the thing afterward, and now I look weird and desperate, and like now because I tried to dilute my first message, and therefore it actually shows this other person that I am self-aware that I replied instantly, but I want you to think that me responding instantly is not because I'm actually needy or desperate, but that paradoxically, because I tried to do that, now you're aware that I know that I looked needy and desperate, and so that actually makes me look even more needy and more desperate. If you're the type of person that types all in lowercase, like you turn the auto caps off on your thing, even worse, if you like have the auto caps on, but you go in and you correct the lowercase, basically, if you type all lowercase, then either you are a poser, or number two, you need to commit so hard to the bit that you make literally every single thing in your life in lowercase. And I know 99.99999% of you I do not respect, because none of you are committing to the bit enough. And what I mean by this is I know a guy who's so committed to the bit that their bank account name is in lowercase. And if your bank account is not in lowercase, then you are a poser, capital P poser. See what I did there, okay? Also, did you know that the bank lets you stylize your name in lowercase? People are just out here doing shit that would like never occur to me. Like that would never occur. Like what the If you're the type of person that only sends like reels or like TikToks or memes when you're texting people, then all of your friendships are maintained entirely through outsourced humor made by other people. And also, I feel like you in your personal life, you have trouble telling people that you love them. Maybe you've never said it. Maybe you're terrified. And sending reels or TikToks or memes is really the only way that you know how to like extend an arm and indicate that you are in fact craving human attention. But you can't outright say it because for some reason you are catastrophically bad at telling people you love them or miss them or appreciate them, or honestly just expressing an emotion that isn't safely disguised as look at this duck online wearing shoes. Because if the other person that you're reaching your hand out for human connection to doesn't react, then you can always pretend that that actually wasn't the point. Like, no, I wasn't trying to have an actually meaningful interaction with you. I just thought the duck was funny. Ha ha ha. Isn't the duck funny? When obviously the duck is not the point. The duck is merely the emotional courier for feelings that apparently can't leave your body unless they're wearing like a little hat. It's like one of those wrinkly cats that has 3 million views on Instagram. And I genuinely think that if Instagram Reels disappeared overnight, you would lose about 70% of your ability to maintain relationships, because you'd suddenly have to look another human being in the eye and produce an original thought that said, I was thinking about you today. Which for you is somehow infinitely more humiliating than sending someone the 38th fuzzy critter of the month, hoping they reverse engineer from your increasingly niche selection of woodland creatures that you're actually trying to say, please don't drift out of my life. I actually really love and appreciate you. I like having you here and I like your company, but you don't know how to show it. If your message box is just like all unread chats, like if you have like in like 440 unread chats, then I feel like if your smoke alarm in your house started beeping, eventually you would just like stop hearing it. Like, you know how there's like people that like when you like have your alarm clock and like it starts beeping and you snooze it and then you like get used to like snoozing it so much you kind of just like stop hearing the alarm after a while and then like it stops waking you up. I feel like it's kind of like that, but like for you, it's like so bad that like if your kitchen detects like the thing in your kitchen that detects carbon monoxide poisoning that could kill you, the smoke alarm, I feel like your brain would just tune that out. By the way, if you're watching a video like this, odds are you're a young adult, probably between like 18 and 35. And because you're at this age and because of your skills, you probably at some point will need a website in order to just get your future up and running. So what I mean by this is like if you're trying to get a job or like you're trying to like update your resume, your creative portfolio, you're going to need a website and you're going to need Squarespace. And the reason I recommend Squarespace is because they make having a website really easy because they already have a ton of professionally designed templates. So instead of trying to like figure out from like scratch how to begin, you basically just pick one that you like and you customize it using like simple drag and drop editing until it fits your site. You add the text and it's done. My favorite thing about using Squarespace is getting your own domain because there's something really nice about having a place online that's marketably yours, unlike having like a page on Instagram or like a page on LinkedIn. And if you ever want to expand your website later to include like writing a blog or starting a store, Squarespace has covered it. So when you're ready to get started, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/crystal to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code crystal. If you're the type of person that likes to double text, then I feel like on the face of it, it's inherently not that bad. And probably if you leave it at only 2 texts, like not actually as socially and like optically humiliating for you as it feels or like as the social stigma stands. But note in that is that even though that's true, the amount of like internal shame that you will feel if this person still doesn't respond to you after you double texted them will be catastrophic because you took the social risk here and you got absolutely none of the payoff. So like the point I'm trying to make here is like, it's not that double texting is like inherently actually that bad. It's actually only bad because you've shown you're committed, right? And like actually because now there's like no plausible deniability left. Like because here you've taken what could have been explained away with like, oh, this person probably didn't respond to me yet because they're probably busy. You've taken that away and you've basically tested the hypothesis, which proves with the double text that they were ignoring you, which actually probably doesn't matter that much to them since they were going to ignore you either way. But now you've voluntarily performed an experiment on yourself whose only possible outcome is making yourself feel worse. And then moving on from that, instead of double text, if you triple text or like quadruple text, like triple text onward, actually, ironically, I think this is actually different from the double text in that you've actually shown from the triple text that you don't even actually care if this other person responds. Like this might not make sense to you until I like kind of explain, but like I feel like triple text or like if you text them like 4 or 5 times, I feel like actually now you've actually freed yourself from like the shackles because you're actually unconcerned of looking needy. Like triple texting is like texting but like self-actualized, like nearing nirvana because the other person now actually doesn't really matter that much because like by the 3rd text, right, you've actually like paradoxically accepted that like this conversation is like fundamentally one-sided, which is actually weirdly liberating if you think about it because they can actually reject you more than you already have, right? So it actually becomes ego death, like wow, good for you, love that for you. Like you've actually reached like a level of shamelessness, like circles all the way back around into confidence. If every time you send a text, that text looks like a mini essay, like it's just like 3,000 words long, like every time you send something and you're just going on and on, then I feel like you're the type of person that really likes having like an internal TED talk or like a, you know, like a speech while you're taking your showers, you know, or like even when you're brushing your teeth, that is a bit excessive. But like definitely when you're taking a shower, you like to like have little arguments with yourself. You're like gesticulating in the shower, you know, like you're like muttering to yourself. Maybe you're even looking in the mirror while you're doing it. But without fail, you're definitely thinking of some like straw man accusation or argument that like someone is having with you and like you start like just like pontificating and you start thinking about like what you're gonna say and like how the other person just like completely shuts up completely when they hear your like totally incredible argument, you know, you totally school this person, you fucking show them, you know, like yeah, get that little dopamine hit from like arguing and like winning an argument that never happened with someone in your mind while in the shower. If you're the type of person that likes to like react or like heart messages instead of like replying, then you never figured out how to end conversations. This is also a problem that I have. And because you don't know how to do that, you just kind of like or like react to their message with an emoji. So you can stop responding and you close the conversation without having to put yourself in the uncomfortable position of actually closing it with your words, because reacting to the message communicates that you saw the message and you acknowledge the message and you appreciate the message. But it also requires like no effort or vulnerability on your part, because this is like the internet equivalent of nodding. If every time you send a message, you have to slot like 6 different emojis in there, then I feel like you are also the type of person that like in a social function, you try and like laugh slightly louder than necessary or like slightly louder than your normal tone. So to like indicate and like make sure that everyone knows that you're having a good time. If you refuse to use any emojis at all, like you actively don't use emojis, then I feel like it's also quite important to you to like cultivate like a nonchalant persona, even though like that's kind of an oxymoron in itself, like a nonchalant persona. Because in practice, what this probably looks like is like you just look like kind of like weirdly shifty and like kind of like self-conscious a little bit all of the time, because you're like trying to look casual, which means usually you don't really pull it off that well. So for example, I feel like you're the type of person that will like avoid making eye contact with someone, and then because you were trying to avoid it, you then accidentally make the eye contact because you were actively trying to avoid it. Or like when you're telling a story, you'll just like start saying something, like you start like saying the story and then like get halfway through and then like realize it's not really landing, and then you just kind of like trail off, like you just kind of stop telling the story halfway, which is actually possibly the worst thing that you could have done in that scenario. If you're the type of person that constantly likes to like rewrite your texts before you send it out, I feel like you plan these texts in like your notes app, and then you like copy and paste them from your notes app into the chat and send them, so like you can proofread them and like edit them and like get them exactly right, and then get all the syntax right and before you fire it up. If you're the type of person to leave people on scene, so here, what I mean by like leave people on scene, I don't mean like ghosting people, right? So like here, it's like when someone texts you and then you click and you like open the message and you read it, and like, I don't really know if you have any intention of responding or not, but like if you click into the message and you read it, so you know that the other person will have like, oh, this person's like seen this message at like 4:03 a.m. or like something. If you're the type of person that does this, right? I'm gonna establish fact first and then interpretation of this behavior, right? So starting fact here is, by doing this, you've almost definitely caused someone to hyperventilate because you've done this to them. Like you've definitely caused like deep anxiety, nervous twitching crash out in like some other person who saw you do this and you just didn't respond. Person probably like someone who like rewrites their texts constantly before sending them. So that's fact. That's like factual, objective effect of what you've done. So now I'm gonna move on to like the possible psychological fake psychological reads of like what I have of like why you're doing this. Okay, so there are a couple options here. Number one, you're purposely doing this, like not necessarily in an evil way, but in a way of like keeping control of the relationship dynamic that you have with this other person. Because here you understand that being slightly available is social capital, and you also know exactly what like seeing the scene thing does to people, right? So like where it just creates like enough uncertainty for the other person to just like start negotiating against themselves, even though technically you've not really done anything. So even though you know that you're going to respond to this person eventually, you kind of just let the message marinate there for a while you can. Just as some like free range, passive, emotional manipulation. Second possible interpretation, potentially more charitable. This is some kind of like weird mix of like avoidant attachment and perfectionism. So basically, this is the same shit as like the person who takes ages to respond, where like you do want to respond, but like maybe you forget about it. Probably not. Like most likely you get like task anxiety from like seeing that you have to respond to something and you don't know how to respond to it. But here, unlike the other person who will just read the little preview notification on their lock screen, you, on the other hand, you lack the social awareness to do that, which leads to this person that is waiting for a text from you to like crash out, refer to the established facts mirror because they saw your message and they saw that you didn't respond. In which case, stop doing that. If you're not going to respond immediately, just do what every other normal person with like a conscience, like a guilt conscience does, and just like read the little notifications preview without clicking into it like a normal person, okay? Like, save the other person, like, the shame and, like, the feeling of, like, dread that you, like, they know that you read the message and you chose not to respond, okay? If you respond with one-word answers to absolutely every single text, then there are basically two types of people, right? Either A, you are trying to softly tell or hint to this person you're texting that you're not actually that interested in this conversation with them, which is more likely the case if the person you're texting is like someone you went on a date with, or like even if it's like an acquaintance or like someone from work that you're like not actually that interested in talking to, but like now this person has your number and is texting you, but also you were just like a little bit too much of a coward to just like do the proper thing, which is like if you want someone to stop texting you, you just have to fully ghost them, right? Rather than like breadcrumbing them with like dry answers, which on the face of it makes you feel a little bit better on the outset because you're still responding to this person, right? You're not like completely ghosting them. You're just like responding really badly. But the problem here is that the problem itself, this person won't actually go away because now that person is probably not getting the actual hint that you don't actually want to talk to them, because there's always the possibility in their mind that you do want to talk to them because you're still responding to them. So actually it's like a strange and cruel way of like slow dripping someone with poison, like hoping they'll just keel over, but it's not actually all that way effective or accurate. And sometimes their body will just like metastasize it fast enough so that it doesn't work. And so they just kind of continue like slumping along, like crawling behind you as you walk very slowly. And they're just like on their knees, like groveling, trying to get you to like text them back nicely. And they think in their mind, if they just say the right thing or if they just make the right joke, that you'll be interested, you know, and you'll text back with like passion and like in an engaging way, when you and I both know, watching this video, you have no intention of ever doing that. But you're also too much of a coward to just look the dog in the face and shoot it between the eyes. Or B, you're actually a pretty open person in real life, and you're just really bad at text. But there's no way to know which one it is. And there's no way to reliably tell. If you like to send voice notes instead of typing, then you're one of those fucking people where like when you're telling a funny story in real life, you are always constantly interrupting yourself. Like you're telling your own story, but then you're telling it and then you start ad-libbing on top of it with like another storyline. So like storyline A, the main story is like going on, and then there's like a director's commentary B of like what's fucking happening. And then sometimes you'll even start laughing at your like the story because you're thinking of the story in your mind before you've even reached the funny bit of the story. So like no one else knows why you're fucking laughing. And also, separately to that, bit of a wager, I think more than likely you are an only child. And the reason I think that you're an only child is because there were like no other people your age around when you were growing up for you to learn how to be concise with your words when telling a story. Like your parents probably have more patience for like listening to a really like super meandering story from their kid, whereas people with siblings who are like, you like have siblings that are similar age to you, if you tell your siblings a story, be like, hurry up, finish, you know, what are you trying to say? Okay, so like, actually, it makes you a better storyteller, makes you a better presenter. If every message you send has like perfect grammar and punctuation, then you're either A, one of those people that's just like weirdly pedantic about language. Like if someone in front of you says like, oh, I could care less, when they mean I couldn't care less, I genuinely think that your entire afternoon is ruined. Like you will just think about it the entire day. Also, if you're A, I feel like you're also one of those people that's like correcting other people's grammar in like YouTube comments or like in Reddit posts, which is like doing that is a little bit like turning up to a crack house and like complaining about the wallpaper if you think about it. Or you're person B, which is you're probably someone who's just like over 40 years old, you know, like you're someone's dad, you know, because who the fuck else is doing this? You probably own a printer. And if that's you, more likely than not, the next behavior also applies to you, which is if you're the type of person that always responds with like a thumbs up, then again, I feel like you have a mortgage and like 2 failed marriages because you're a dad and you listen to rock music in your van, okay? Like that's the vibe here. If you never answer the group chat, but you do answer DMs, then I feel like at some point your friends have just like resigned themselves to the fact that like Sadie will never respond in the group chat. Name anonymized for privacy. But this is different from ghosting, however, because you do answer DMs. It's just like if you're in a group chat and there are like already like 5 other people talking, then you just kind of assume that like they don't need to hear your input as well on top of that. Even though you read every single message and you react to absolutely 0 of them. Group chats are kind of just like podcasts for you. If you're the type of person that has to like end every message you send in like haha, or like you end every message with like the crying emoji, then I feel like the internal debate of whether or not you should end your work email with like an exclamation mark so you don't look aggressive or passive aggressive is an everyday occurrence to you. You have this debate with yourself every single day without fail, and you are absolutely terrified of being interpreted sternly, even if you do actually feel sternly about something. So every opinion sin you have, or like every gripe that you have has to be softened with like haha, or like the crying emoji. Like you're the type of person that's like permanently trying to reassure the other person that like this is all in good fun, you know? Like I feel like if someone ran over your foot with their car, you would text them and be like, no, it's okay, don't worry, haha. If you overuse the skull emoji while texting, then you haven't sincerely laughed about anything in like 7 years. Ever since you grew up and like developed shame, now every emotion that you have has to be filtered through like 17 different layers of irony. Like the skull emoji is basically the texting condom for sincerity, right? So if someone ever says something genuinely nice to you, your first instinct is to reply skull emoji. I feel like if someone proposed to you, you would announce the news to your friends like, bro, I just got engaged. Skull emoji. If you're the type of person that's like constantly apologizing over text, then I feel like you're the type of person where like when you're sitting in like a public place, right? Like if you're in like on a park bench or like sitting on the train or something, and like you were already planning on like getting up from that seat. If right before you do get up, someone sits down next to you, you are and what I mean by this is like you were planning on getting up and someone sits right down next to you. Now you feel like you can't get up because in your mind you're like, if I get up now, it'll make the other person that just sat down feel like I got up because they sat down, and you don't want to do that because you feel like the other person will feel bad because it makes it look like they affected you so much that you're getting up and they're so gross and they got up and like, but also you need to get up. This is your stop this is your train stop. This is your worst nightmare. If your texts contain like weird corporate sanitized language, then either number one, you are texting someone about work, or number two, this is your girlfriend and she's really fucking mad at you, and so she's pulling out the HR language because she's fucking furious, like pissed off. She's pissed and it just comes out. I don't know, like I don't appreciate the way you've chosen to communicate with me, and I think we need to have a conversation about our expectations moving forward. And I'm struggling to understand what the outcome was that you're trying to achieve here, and from my point of view, I feel like this interaction has been consistently one-sided, and I don't think my feelings have been given the consideration that they deserve. I'm no longer interested in discussing your intentions, I'm discussing the impact of them. If you're the type of person that sends GIFs or like GIFs, you guys are fucking weird and pedantic, but if you're the type of person that sends GIFs, then you are a millennial. Possibly we're doing this as colleagues over the Slack channel, God forbid. If you like to ask follow-up questions about everything, then you're every female friend I've ever had. If you never ask follow-up questions while texting, then you're every male friend I've ever had. If you're the type of person that always sends like 8 messages in a row instead of 1 paragraph, so this one is different from double texting or triple texting, because what I mean here is like, if you have basically one single thought that you want to type out, but like instead of like typing all of it in one message, you split it up into like different multiple messages, like different multiple clauses that go like this. This one is basically me as well, right? So like basically, you're the type of person that treats texting like some sort of like bizarre flow of consciousness thing. This is done in your mind with like stylistic choice and reason, even though definitely no one else views it that way, and it just looks like you're clogging up the message, right? But like also I feel like I do it because I think it helps the other person comprehend the message better, because I feel like when you send little messages, you can control the delivery of what you want to say via pacing. There's like a pacing issue here because spaces or pauses, you can't control how the person's gonna read your message. So I can do that. I can add a little pause in by like changing the message, you know, you get me? I do that all with like YouTube scripts, you know, so I know where to pause. I just like end the sentence with like a full stop, so like I can stop even though I know it's grammatically wrong and no one taught me how to write properly. Also, this one is definitely not cope for me admitting that this is basically just double texting. Crystal is a double texter. Actually, no, I refuse to admit that I'm not a double texter. This is different, okay? Double texting is like so or poor, okay? This is definitely an actual distinction that I didn't just make up, but it's on the internet now, so it's true. That's how it works. If you never text first, then I feel like you probably missed out on like some genuinely good friendships or like genuinely good relationships in your life, because like both of you were just fucking playing chicken. And you're the type of person where like you would rather like accidentally drift off with someone rather than like risk seeming annoying. And also I feel like you, even more than the average person who already feels this in their regular life, you feel like even more so feel embarrassed and like self-conscious about shit that like you've done in public that like literally no one else things about. Like, I feel like you more than even like the average person, you like lie awake at night and like think about that stupid thing that you fucking did like 7 years ago. Even like it only exists in like the cage of your mind, and like it's just in the quantum, just in your mind. If you're the type of person who's constantly changing the group chat name or like the group chat wallpaper or like the wallpaper color, then I feel like you're the type of person that adds cover art to your Spotify playlist. Like if something can be customized, you best can bet you're going to be customizing it. Like the Wi-Fi name, you've changed the Wi-Fi name in your house more than one time. If you're the type of person that always unsends your messages, then the short version interpretation of this is that you're really fucking annoying for doing this, and stop that. But then the long version of this is that there are basically two types of people that unsend messages. The first type of person is that this person is just an aggressive self-editor, and half the time they send a message, they reread it like 30 seconds later, and then they decide, no, like that's not me, I don't know why I wrote that, I'm a different person from the time I wrote that, and so they delete the message. And the second one is less embarrassing, but more, in my opinion, annoying and damning. You are basically an emotional terrorist. So contrast that to the first person who unsends messages because they changed their mind. You, on the other hand, unsend messages because the person that you send the message to took too long to respond to you, and that irritates you, and so you unsend the message like a form of punishment to this other person, right? So while the first type of person unsends the message and hopes that the other person doesn't notice that they do that, you, on the other hand, you unsend the message with the desire that the other person does notice and sees that you're annoyed or like upset or like that they took too long to respond or something, and they're just like intrigued, and then they're like, oh, are they manufacturing intrigue? What did they say? Oh my god, blah blah blah. You know, like this is literally the digital equivalent of like storming out of the room, but like storming out as in still walking slowly enough that like someone has the opportunity to like stop you as you're like, no, I'm leaving, and you just walk out really fucking slowly. If you're the type of person that's like constantly sending the person you're texting like links to like videos or like articles or like tweets or like video, like blah blah blah, then I feel like you really like the idea of parallel play in a relationship. And if you don't know what parallel play is, it's basically like when you and like your boyfriend or like you and your girlfriend are like in the same room, but you're like both separately doing your own shit. So like basically you're parallel playing. And also I feel like you genuinely believe like if someone consumes enough of the same media as you, eventually they'll just understand you without you ever having to explain yourself, which you don't know or like don't like to do, which is, for the record, fucking wrong. I don't know if anyone's ever told you this. If you're the type of person that's like incapable of ending a conversation naturally, like what I mean is like, but like when you're texting someone and it feels like the conversation is about to reach its natural end, you're the type of person that will like immediately try and like come in and like steer it into a fresh direction, you know? Like the topic will be wrapping up and then you'll be like, ha ha ha, anyway, and then you like launch into like something else unrelated. If you're the type of person to do this, then I feel like you're scared of goodbyes, but like not necessarily in like scared of goodbyes in like a deep abandonment issue way, like not in like a Freudian way, but like in the sense that like every time you end an interaction with someone, you suddenly become convinced that like the other person is gonna think that you don't like them if you let the conversation die. You just gotta keep trying to like introduce new topics, even though you're not really actually sure if you want to continue talking or like talk about this topic. But like also, you don't want to be the person who decides that the talking should stop and like jumping off from that, right? Because you do that in your texting, I feel like this bleeds into like the other aspects of your life, right? So for example, I get the sense that you are probably a nightmare to eat out with, in the sense that every time someone asks you to go, like, where do you want to eat? Or like, oh, what type of food are you feeling right now? You're always the person that's like, oh, I don't really mind, I can eat anything. You pick, and so the other person picks something and you go along with it, but like the entire time you're kind of just like not really happy with the food, or you're like not really feeling it, but like you won't say it out loud, so you just kind of pick at your food the entire time throughout dinner. If you're the type of person that's constantly saying like, oh, sorry for the late reply when you're texting another person, then you're not actually sorry because you feel bad for the other person. You're saying sorry for the late reply to ease the weight off of your guilty conscience for you replying late. If you like changing the wallpaper for individual chats, then I'm not gonna fucking lie. You have too much fucking time on your hands. Who the fuck has time for this? If Apple let you assign everyone in your contacts list your own font, you would absolutely fucking do it, even if it was like your fucking an Uber, like your delivery driver one time, you would give them a little fun, okay? Also, I feel like you're really into Animal Crossing. Separately and relatedly, you've played thousands of hours into that game. And that concludes all of the texting behaviors. If you're one of these, you're probably one of these, then comment below what you are and oh my god, you're right. And if you like this video, then I made a ton of other fake pseudo personality quizzes that you can check out in this playlist here, or like you should watch this video that YouTube thinks you should watch next.